Ancients Part 5. Welcome. This will be the last part of the Ancients, and from here we'll move on to the rest of the series of the Monsterverse. Part 5, The Ancients. Cathanid, on his ship in command over orbit of Elysia, home of their people, checks the command module on his ship. The Ultramen under him report of the attacks moving towards the Sol system. He looks at his screen to see attacks around the universe at the Elder home sites. He orders his ships in the vicinity to follow him to Sol. We zoom out of the viewport as we see war damage on the ships, and we continue to zoom out to see large wreckage of fleets nearby. We pan back to Earth to Hastur, breaking out of the main building, fighting off incoming swarms. Kronos in the distance unleashes a blast that clears the vicinity of Dark Swarm. The ground is rumbling as Hastur shrinks himself to cover himself from the blast. With only minutes before the Dark Swarm re-engages Kronos, Hastur goes back to his Titan height and picks up Kronos, having him lean on him. Quetzalcoatl clears the immediate surrounding with flame and opens them a path. They still have a chance to make it out, but they must follow the main road out. As he begins to grow more, pushing beyond his capabilities, he picks up Kronos and dashes for the exit. He orders Quetzalcoatl to pick up Kronos as he works the terminal at the edge. Thousands of Dark Swarm catch up as he opens a small hole in the shielding. He orders him out, and Cthulhu manages to wound Quetzalcoatl as they fall just outside of the shielding. Hastur closes the shielding, trapping himself and the dark others inside. He yells to Cthulhu, telling him he was a coward to attack their mother and their brothers, leading the Dark Ones on to their new home. Cthulhu did not respond, however, but instead leapt after Hastur. The city then began to fall. Hastur charged into Cthulhu as he enveloped him in secretion. As they wrestled, damaging the rest of the infrastructure, Hastur begins to feel himself transformed. Above Hastur, he sees the light of the golden and red fleet above the shielding. His vision begins to fade as he starts to look similar to Cthulhu in his new transformed appearance. We pan back to Kronos, who wakes as Artemis and the female guard of Ultramen begin to move Kronos and Quetzalcoatl to safer lands. The battle on the planet still rages on, though the majority of their forces were now trapped in the giant city, renamed Relay. Artemis looks at the wounded kaiju and prays that the dark keeps the city, and that the city keeps them too. On the eastern lands of Mu, we see Hanuman, the giant white ape, obliterate some of the last big darkspawn, with the golden red fleet around the globe killing off any stragglers and assisting the other empires. We see them in Tau with a giant serpent in orbit. As they look up, they see Jormungandr, the once proud Ultraman Prince Gandor, a colossal being. Several reports of Ultramen surviving transformations into the dark incantations around the major cities. Many are being kept in quarantine until leaders can figure out if they are treatable. With the main healing factions unable to cleanse completely, not even Gaia could fully heal the madness and dark conversions. The remaining Ultramen on the surface begin a campaign of rescue and eliminate any Darkspawn survivors. As most activity of hunting Darkspawn dies down, the retaking of the planet is complete. The leaders of the Ultramen now devise plans to free those trapped underground. With the arrival of the eldest son, Cathanid, Hastur's oldest brother, a new fruit was brought native to Elysium, their home planet, and it is planted in Mu's capital. The fruit is able to ease in the converted Ultramen and Kaiju, and release them as well as help heal them. The fruit had some side effects of growth. Cathanid is able to take some samples from his brother's body in orbit before injecting it into him. Eventually, once Gandor regains consciousness in his Ultraman body, he is woken by Fury. He tells him that they are using his genes to rebuild a hybrid, nicknamed Jormanda, or as we will learn to refer to as Manda. They use Manda to break into the crust and open the passageway into the inner earth on the capital of Mu. During this, Cathanid and his brothers begin a search for their brother Hastur, now buried under the sea. They make their way through the debris and come upon the shielding. They see the swarm of darkness waiting on the other side, failing to break the shielding. The brothers begin to look for any surviving terminals, when they do discover Hastur and Cthulhu in an eternal grapple stuck in stasis. The Dark Ones seem to avoid them. Cathanid could hear the repetitive whispers of his brothers. Hastur whispers, "Why, brother?" While his brother Cthulhu whispers, "The end is nigh." The brothers are disturbed by the sight of several Darkspawn digging under, attempting to go under the shielding. They look around as they see the whole perimeter was attempted at the digging already. The brothers pull back and they argue amongst themselves as the younger ones wish to retrieve Hastur, but Cathanid argues not to free the swarm there. They devise a one-time plan to use Manda to break into the crust underneath and free Hastur, and then stasis the area. Cathanid orders the mantle to be cracked to allow this, and to slowly submerge the city into an underground bubble into the core. Though with time limited, each accepts the risks, with the city preparing for earthquakes as a potential result. They begin their plan as Manda opens the way and cracks the mantle. Cathanid, with an enormous amount of power, is able to break through large waves of darkspawn and approach Hastur and Cthulhu. The younger brothers fight on to keep the entrance clear. Cathanid grabs Hastur and pulls him away from Cathanid, breaking the stasis. They both then latch onto Cathanid. He pushes him down and reaches into his pocket for the Elysium fruit. He eats one as he feels his body transform. He then tries to force-feed the fruit to his brothers. He manages to force the fruit into Hastur as Cthulhu is able to grip his arm. Hastur grabs at his brother Cthulhu as he tells Cathanid to leave. The ground rumbles as they begin to sink towards the core of the earth. Cathanid activates the stasis as he kicks Cthulhu back and retrieves Hastur. He orders Manda to extract him, which overwhelms the darkspawn at Manda's immense size. They depart and arrive on the surface. They receive readings that the city has made it to the core, locked into a stasis, and nearly impossible to reach now. Hastur begins to understand what had happened. Though not fully recovered after his rescue, he begins to obsess with a plan to save Cthulhu. Even though his brothers inform him that the invasion of this system was devised by Cthulhu himself, the Earth has undergone a few changes in the now known Atlantic Ocean, as new lands have risen. After a few days, we see the refugee survivors from the Red and Gold planet arrive. Cathanid and the Earth leaders welcome them, as he then asks for volunteers to help him in his task in putting the outer gods in stasis. Many join him, though he starts to notice his brother's unease and Hastur's obsession over saving his brother. Gandor was still raving about his fear of the void. Fruring is heartbroken with the realization that his father sacrificed himself to stop the colossal outer god. While their mother was lost to her transformation, Cathanid sought them out individually and wiped pieces of their mind to live in peace. The madness was way too much for them to bear. This is where Cathanid returns to Elysium space to hunt outer gods, leaving the brothers under the charge of the Northern Empire. Though he tells the new leaders of the Earth that a time may come when he must call upon them should any of the outer gods wake. In epilogue, a new home is eventually built in what we know as Atlantis, where the brothers are moved and eventually Hastur begins to dream of his brother. From here he moves to the North Pole, into the ice. He digs underground where he remains, trying to find a way to communicate with his brother. Gandor moves to the Eastern Empire to remain closer to his mother's transformed self. Eventually Fruring too moves away towards modern-day Europe, where Gandor will occasionally visit. Kronos remains in Atlantis with Dagon and the remainder of their kin. Gaia settles to the east, where her black egg was buried, keeping a watchful eye over it. Her smaller kin attempt to heal Gaia, but begin to transform into wasp-like creatures in the absorption of the dark corruption. As some time passes, we see the tree that held the remains of the Dark One onto arrive at the coast of Mu, where a man is burning some of the Elysium fruit. He sees the tree and brings it inland to use as firewood. Instead of burning, it begins to consume smoke, and the man attempts to run, but is consumed by this creature, now known as Hedorah. And that ends the Ancients miniseries. Some author notes. I did bring in a lot of H.P. Lovecraft and some slight SCP cameos. I wanted to suggest that during this time, several surviving Ultramen become tainted, which could explain the origin of some of the SCP monsters. I also had a lot of attack on Titan influences when it came to the Ultramen growing and shrinking in size as steam appeared around them, like in Episode 1. Nyarlathotep is still around and hiding by staying in the image of a man. You will see some of these characters return for Ultraman and Gamera. Also, at some point between Hedorah's first arrival and Godzilla BC's events of Ghidorah's arrival, there is a civil war in Mu that seals the inner Earth with Manda, as in the events of Godzilla vs. Kong outline that I wrote. I did include Sumerian god, Norse god mythos, as you guys might have seen, as well as the Cthulhu mythos, very heavily influenced in this. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'm going to be working on Ultraman next. But yeah, hopefully if you don't like these kind of non-image videos, let me know and I'll try and make a second version. It'll be the same exact audio, just with images instead. But this actually makes things a lot faster and I can pump it out much quicker. So please let me know what you think. What did you like about the whole series? What would you change? Who would you have included? Who would you have not included? And let me know in the comments. I definitely appreciate it. And I'll talk to you guys there. See you guys in the next video. Thank you for sticking around, and yeah, looking forward to the next one. Lord Commander Guts out, aka Mike G. See you guys.